Hello again. I'm really sorry. I forgot to turn on my microphone, so I need to do an introduction again. I am Elizabeth Postol from Boris FX, and today we are going to be talking about sky replacements. So why would you even want to do a sky replacement? There are a couple of reasons for that. First reason is that if you're shooting in a very sunny day, you might end up having a completely blown out sky. So you would have just a white solid basically, and it won't be looking very nice. But last years, cameras are getting more and more better. So this type of problem is becoming less. You would much more less encounter this problem. But even if you shoot your beautiful blue gradient, this might be not always what you wanted for the scene. So maybe the scene is very dramatic and your actual real sky look like just too dull and too boring. So this is another case of using that. Or if you're working not in just one shot, if you have a whole scene which is taking place outside and you shoot it in 2 days. So even if you can control your camera, you can't control the weather. So day number 1 may be having clouds and the other one will have just no clouds at all. And you cannot just edit between those two shots because then it will look weird. So you gotta fix it in post. So if you have any questions during the stream, feel free to ask them in the chat and scan this little QR code if you want to join our Discord server. And now let's get into After Effects. I hope you can hear and see me well. So let me show you what I have prepared for today. And first, let me show you how actually the sky can change the feel of the scene. So for example, this is version number 1, which I did for the forest. And if the sky would be looking differently, see how big difference it can make. So this looks much more like some kind of fairy tale. This one is a bit more regular one. And if you want to see a source, this is how actually source looks like. So a bit boring, right? Hello, 7-Eleven in the chat. So yeah, I will be constantly switching between After Effects and checking the chat. So leave your comments there. And another shot which I have prepared and which we mostly be focusing today is this shot with the girl. I even did the 2 versions of that because I couldn't decide which I loved better. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. So they are similar, but we will talk how I did that a bit later. And let me show the source, of course. So we will be taking nice, really looking shots and making it even more better. I hope you like the result. So let's start creating it. I would drag my source and create a new composition. Thank you. In the chat. Yes, here is my source. I'm creating a new composition. And I would cut only the first 4 seconds because this is far too long for the stream. So we'll be just focusing on the technique and not doing the whole length. Okay, so this is our base, and let's of course start with the tracking. So I would apply Mocha Pro to it. And let's launch Mocha. Okay, so everything looks fine here. In general, if you want to enhance the sky, you need to track the most farthest object that you can see in the shot. So here it would be sun. And actually having a sun in a shot is really great because this is the most infinite, the distance between our camera and the sun is like infinity. So we would just track the sun and this will give us the greatest result that we can expect. So I would just draw a simple circle around it. And I would disable shear rotation and scale because mostly we only need the translation here. Adjust my surface and hit track. So track is looking good. I would export that into After Effects. And while I have that in my clipboard, I would create a new null object, call that sun track, and paste data to it. Here is our data. So far, so good. So, speaking for the actual skies, why did this tutorial is called Advanced Sky Replacement? If you ever was trying to do a sky replacement, most likely you was just combining your new sky from the just random pictures that you were looking on the Google or maybe taking it yourself, as I do sometimes. But let's just see what kind of a problem we have by doing this by this method. So let me just search for some sky clouds, for example. So you might find a bunch of like really great looking pictures, but most of them would be either cropped, like for example this one, like this clouds looking really good, but we have really not the best perspective of it, or that it might be a low resolution. Hello chat. Or they might be from paid stocks, so you will be spending really a lot of time just by Googling pictures that you can't that you want to use for your sky. So instead of doing this method, what I actually prefer to do is using HDRI. And what I mean by HDRI, it's not just high dynamic range photo, it's actual 300-degree panorama that was shot on a camera. And you'll see why I love this method, because when you try that, you can't go back. So I would share with you a couple of websites where do I usually grab this HDRIs. So one is HDRI Heaven. We have a question in the chat. 711 is asking, I can't export my Mocha Pro 3D motion data to After Effects. Yes, to actually export your 3D data, you need to have additional plugins installed. Let me show you where you can find that. So you should go to borisfx.com into the download section, then choose Mocha, choose an operation system what you're using, and you need to grab this Mocha track importer, install that into After Effects as a plugin, and then you will be able to find this option, paste Mocha camera into the edit menu. So I hope you can see that here. So yeah, that's the way to do it. Let's get back to our skies. So the site number one is HDRI Heaven. And once you find it, you already can see a bunch of really weird looking panoramas. And we are mostly interested in sky. For example, this one looking really great. Usually HDRIs are used in a 3D software to light your scene, but they are also really handy because just take a look at the sky. This is just gorgeous. So let's maybe grab one of these. I would choose outdoors. Okay, let's download this one. So you have a couple of options in what resolution you want to grab it. Obviously, like the 1K and 2K would be just too small, but the 24K would be really hard to process for your computer. So I usually grab something in the middle, like 4K. Let's take 4K and save it somewhere on your PC. Once you have that, if you try to drag that into your After Effects composition, you might be wondering why it's looking so bad here, because if you get back to the HDRI Heaven, it's not exactly what we are seeing here. Why is that? Because HDRI is basically high dynamic range image, and we kind of need to process it. We can do that in After Effects, but again, it will be really hard to calculate in After Effects, so I actually prefer to do that in Photoshop. So let's open Photoshop. So let's drag our HDRI here. And it still looks bad here, right? So to actually process it, we need to go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter. And now we can finally edit our high dynamic range picture. So what I usually do, I grab my exposure down a bit so I can see the sky actually. And just play with the settings until it would look like how I like it. So a bit more vibrance, I think. So we don't really care about how the ground looks like. We're only focusing our attention on the upper side of the image. Well, something like this looks fine to me. So I would hit OK. Our results has been updated, and I would save that as a TIFF image. Export as. No, let's actually save that as PNG. Okay, exports. And okay, save. We can close Photoshop now. We don't need that anymore. And get back to After Effects. So now I would drag the processed image into After Effects. And here is our panorama. Okay, so what is so important about the HDRIs and why do I prefer this method? Is because because we have it 360 degrees, we basically can pan around like we would do on a real location, and we would can choose any part of this beautiful sky. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat at the same time. So I have a comment about somebody totally forgotten about the exposure slider. Do you mean exposure slider inside After Effects or in Photoshop? I don't quite get what you mean. So, HDRIs. To be actually pan around in the After Effects space, we need to apply effect called CC environment. But we need to apply that not to the file of the panorama. We actually need to have it solid that would match the resolution of our composition. So I would create new, solid. Let's make that blue just to remember that this is for the sky. So now I drag CC environment on the solid. Here inside the environment, I would choose my file, and we can't see nothing. Why is that? To actually see the environment, we need a basic camera. So I would create new After Effects camera. And this is important, like what focal length we would choose. Usually, if you are working with a wide shot, this is, or any like landscape shot, this is probably will be like somewhere around maybe 16 millimeters to 25. So I would choose 20. And now we can see our sky, and look at this. Isn't that amazing? So we can pan around, not only horizontally, but if I would go into camera settings, I can also pan like this. So this is what I mean, that once you try that, you can go back, because imagine trying to combine this kind of an image with just random Google picture photos. You would be spend so much time, and instead of doing that, you can just use an HDRI. You just need spend a little more time to process it before you turn it into an After Effects, and you'll be ready to go. So another reason why I love this method is that HDRI have a lot of data in highlights, but to be actually being able to access that data, you need to have your project into 32 bits channel. Let me grab another panorama for the demo. Okay, so we have another question, where to get HDRI images. Okay, so the one site that I already have shown is HDRI Heaven. These are free to use. Another one that I can recommend is called Mocha HDRI. Let's try that. Oh, sorry, no Emotion HDRI. So you can choose like day or evening, and these are also free to use. So just spend your time, and this one is really beautiful looking. So maybe we can try this one. Nope, some reason it's not downloading, so we will just continue with what we have for now. Hi, chat. So yeah, to be actually being able to use HDRI panoramas inside After Effects, you need to remember that your project does need to be set into 32 bits channel. So then you can use the exposure slider and see like You can basically control your exposure in post. If you would forget to change your project into 32, it will be looking like a bit more, it will look just bad. But because again, HDRIs are hard to preset, you can start creating your project in 8-bit and then get back to 32 bits. This will be a bit faster workflow. Great, so now you know the principle. Let's maybe switch this panorama into actual sunset one that I would really want to use with this girl shot, because this one is not quite matching the look that I want to achieve. So I have prepared another one. This one is called Skies on Fire. This is also from HDRI Heaven, I believe. And the name describes exactly how it looks. It looks like skies on fire. So inside the CC environment, I would change my environment map to this new file. Now I can hide this one picture and I would delete the previous one. And now we can navigate on this photo. So let me turn the blending mode into multiply. So we will use that just to roughly place the clouds. How do we want? So I would turn my camera. We need rotation. So just don't pay attention into the colors. We're just focusing on the placement now. So if you want it to be a little bit more white, you can use lens distortion parameter and see what's happening. Let me turn it back to the normal blending mode. So this is another parameter that you can control basically. Okay, so let's say we like this part of the sky, and if we compare that to our original source footage, we need to remember that we need to still have the sun in the same position, because if you would place this cloud, like for example, in the left side of the shot, and the actual sun is on the right side of the shot, it would just look weird. So I would pan it accordingly. Maybe let's turn the opacity down a bit so we can briefly see both of the images. So I'm trying to match the brightest part of this cloud with the actual sun. Zoom in a bit, because we're kind of starting to see the town here, and we don't want a town in the middle of an ocean. So I would zoom in a bit. So this, we will have a little bit of town here, but we will clean up that with the clone tool. So this is fine to leave it like here, like this. Okay, so the general placement looks fine, I think. Okay, so how we would actually comp this sky now? So you can play with the blending modes, and to do it fast, you can hold Shift and just click plus or minus on your keyboard. And you'll be able to quickly switch between different blending modes and choose what you prefer more. So usually multiply works great, or overlay, or soft or hard light. This is maybe too hard, so you should play with the opacity. But I would leave that on an actual normal blending mode with like 82% of opacity. And let's try now linking our sky to the track data that we have originally. So I would take this big whip and link that into the null. Let's play back. Well, it's kind of matching, but we have this problem that part of the image is cropped. So let's try making our solid a bit bigger. And yeah, this is how we are able to fill those gaps. Great. So we need to kind of get our girl back. And instead of doing a roto, I would actually just try to key her out. So I would duplicate my source layer, put it on the top, and grab BCC Luma keyer from the Continuum pack. Yeah, the full name is BCC Linear Luma Key, so I would drag that onto my footage. And immediately we see that something is happening, but instead of keying out the darker, we need to key out the brighter. And this is how we would economize so much time instead of doing the roto. I would soften here a bit. Maybe adjust the threshold. So yeah, even that the sides are not ideal, we only caring about the girl in the center, and I think the result is pretty fine, like this. I would also use a mask with a really big feather. And that's how we get our girl back. But we also need all of the rest, all of the ground. We won't be keying the ground because the ground is actually something that is easier to just roto or to separate it by mask. So let's jump into Mocha again. It's taking a time for launch. Okay. Now I would draw a really big mask to separate the ground from the sky. And I don't even need to track that because I already have my sun track, and I can just link that, my ground, to the sun, and the motion will be exactly the same. So this is a parameter linked track, and I selected layer 1, which is our sun. Let's even call that sun. So our project is staying organized, and the second layer is ground. So yeah, mask is following pretty good. I can close Mocha. And create AE masks. So we immediately have our mask being created, but I actually don't, like, I want it not on the source footage layer, I want to use it as a matte. So I would create another solid, this time black, and call that matte. Now we just copy this mask. We actually have two masks. We have sun and the ground. I would delete the sun and just copy the ground into the matte layer. I can disable it now, and I can set our HDRI layer to use this matte as a matte actually. So I need to click on this pig whip, connect it to the matte, and here is the result. But we need that inverted, so I click this button, and we kind of starting getting a result. But this is super hard line, like it looks super unnatural. So I would go into mask settings, and I would feather that a bit. Thank you, 7-Eleven. Yeah, this is a great technique to use. I hope it will be handy for you too. So yeah, we spent like 15, maybe less minutes on this shot, and this is how we was able to get from this to this. Well, not a big of a difference, but we will enhance that result a bit more. To comp it better, I would want to also add more of a pinkish color also to the ground. So let me remember how I did it in the first place, because there are a lot of variants how you can do the same things in After Effects in different ways. But perhaps let me just pre-comp the sky that we already have created to have a bit more simple timeline here. So I would select the sun, camera, the texture, and the blue solid, and I hit pre-compose. Call everything that sky. Great. I would actually add that into a composition again, our sky. But now I would flip it upside down, because I want kinda the sky to reflect on the water. So I can make it a bit smaller. I can actually crop all of the rest that I don't really need anymore. And I would make it super blurry, like super blurry, so we can't really see any details. So I would search for fast box blur and put a value somewhere around, well, let's start with 50. Maybe we'll add more in the future. So I would now turn this layer into soft light, and you see how subtle effect it gives us, but there is a difference, like it helps us to blend the overall effect a bit more, to blend it a bit more. So I would make it bigger again. And I would perhaps turn the opacity to somewhere around 30. So I want just a subtle amount of this effect. I would copy my original soundtrack layer to have another copy in my main comp, and I would link this upside down sky to also use. So it will be also linked to this same track. So soundtrack. Let's play back. Okay, so far so good. The problem I see now is that, like, I like how this side of the sky is looking, but this one is looking a bit weird. Why is that? So if you will watch how does the original was looking, so you see that we have a little bit of vignetting on the sides of the image. So we will try to emulate this manually. So I have my sky pre-comp. I would draw a big ellipse mask, but I won't be using this for masking. I want to use this as a matte for an effect. So you can use curves or layers. Let's just grab curves. And inside the effect settings, inside curves, you can hit on this little plus on the compositing options, and then you can select your masks. We only having one now because this is what we draw. And now if I would play with curves, you see that the effects is only changing where the mask is. But I actually want this inverted, so I hit this invert box. And I also want this to be much more feathered. So this is after, and this is before. You see like how subtle this effect is, but how big a difference it makes. Let's try to play back it. Okay, I like how it is going, but I want the overall image be a little bit more punchier and contrastier. So if we have a look at the versions that I made originally, like this is what I was able to get. And this is where we are right now. So this one is much more contrastier than this one. And how did I make that? I would have another copy of my source footage. I would put that on the top. And I would turn the blending mode. Thank you for the nice comments in the chat. Sorry, I can't read your nickname correctly, so I wouldn't even try. Yeah, I would turn the blending mode to the soft light. And boom, the results are much more contrastier now. So again, before and after. But this one is probably too dark for me. So I would turn the opacity again somewhere around 61. No. Okay, let's leave it around 70 for now. You know what, let's even add a bit more contrast to the sky. So I would grab another curves effect, apply it to the sky, and I would put it on the top of the curves that we already have, so it will affect everything that is above. And just add a little bit of a contrast. Perhaps I would adjust the mask also from this side, because you see, like this is a bit more darker than this one. So let's grab it somewhere like this. So our main focus of attention is only here. Okay, how we can blend this even more better? So now we have separated our sky from the ground by simple mask, but there is another way how you can theoretically do that. So I would disable mask for a moment. I would set that to none. Oh, sorry. Because we have already our sky pre-comped, we should do that inside the pre-comp. So yes, I would disable my mask here. And I would grab a gradient ramp effect. Apply that to our matte. And basically, everything that is black won't be visible and everything that is white will be visible. But we can make that inverted. This is super easy. So this is button mate is inverted, and I would turn on and off it. Okay, I would disable visibility of the matte. And this is how we can control the visibility of the sky with the gradient. So now I can drag these two little widgets and control the featheriness between the top and the lower sides of the image. So yeah, now I made it a little bit more softer, and you see how this affected my image. Let's play back it in motion. Okay, we have a little bit of an artifacts. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that's because we have made our separation softer. And how I would fix that? Well, I would just blur it. Because basically this is a water, we can just blur things and that won't look weird because there is already so many motion in the water that the blur would look fine. So I would look for the first box blur again, apply that to my sky, crank it up somewhere. Okay, let's leave it at 14 now, but again, all of the image is blurry now. So I would drag another rectangle here. I would go into Effect Settings, Fastbox Blur, Composition Options. I would click on that little plus again. So it's the same trick as we did for the vignetting, but now for the blur. I'm selecting this mask, and now everything that's only inside of the mask get blurred, you see? And I also need to separate, make a mask again a bit more softer. So I click F on my keyboard to get into the feather settings options and leave it like 65. Okay, let's get back into main composition and see how it looks like. Yeah, now we almost can see those artifacts. But you know what? If you look more closely here, for example, you see these rocks are definitely in a defocus because our main focus obviously was on this woman. But if you look at the sky, the clouds are super sharp, and that's not how it should look in real life if we would shoot that in a sunset. So I would grab BCC lens, lens blur. Let me just find it. Okay, so camera lens blur. I'm applying that on the sky. And default value of 5 is a bit too much. So we probably would need like 1 or 2 just to have a subtle effect. So this is 1. And this is 2. Yeah, probably I would leave that as 2. Let's try to play back. So yeah, and let's again compare that to the original. So this is before, and this is after. I think we have made, we've taken a shot that was looking good enough, and we made it looking even better. And now, that is even more funnier that you can still control that HDRI if you didn't want the position, or your director said, that I didn't like that cloud. So you can just go here into the CC environment and you switch the horizontal pan. Okay, maybe like this. Even the sun won't be in the correct place. Yeah, you see that this is looking a bit weird, but you can easily basically pan around. Or even more, you can try taking another HDRI. So maybe let's try grabbing one of these they have here. So this is obviously not a sunset, but just to show you how easy it is to change the skies. I would tint it a little bit to the reddish color, so I would apply lumetri effect and turn the white balance into more orangish, pinkish colors. Okay, so we have a comment in the chat. Very hard to find BCC effects. They all look like same name. Well, it's kind of a truth because they all are starting from the BCC, but the more you will try to use them, actually, you will definitely find your favorites, and you will just remember those names. And for example, the one I use often is like BCC light wrap. Yeah, here it is on the top, but you still can find that without typing in BCC. So you basically just type in the name of effect that you want to apply, and you will have that in the list. Okay, getting back to our sky, let me change the mapping, sorry, not the mapping environment, from the sky that we had before to this new file. This one is called Kloppenheim. Perhaps this is the name of location somewhere. And you see it has changed here. So yeah, I can pan around. I would estimate, yeah, you see that it immediately was updated here. So perhaps I need to pan a little bit more, because this is our sun inside the HDRI, and it's not quite matching the real sun. So a bit more, maybe -100 will work. Nope, that's too much. Need to write this subtle adjustment. So 99. Okay, and now just position it a bit more lower. So I would do that inside the camera. So I need rotation, something like this. And mask everything with the matte, with the gradient ramp that we have. So this one should be a bit more upper. because we're already kind of starting to see the fields, and we don't want to see the field. So I would leave it somewhere like this. And yeah, this is another variant that we can have. But I actually prefer the first more because obviously we should match sunset to the sunset, or at least it should match the feel of the scene that you are looking for. And this one is not quite working for me, so I would get back to the what I was having in the beginning. Something like this. Okay, maybe as the final touch, I would add a little bit of an overall color correction. So I would do that with the BCC looks. Let me create an adjustment layer, call that CC, which stands for color correction, and grab looks. I would launch the FX editor. And let's see if we can find a great looking preset. Ooh, I can already have seen what we can use here. Maybe some of these will be too much or too strong, but we will just control that with opacity. Oh, there's a preset that is called literally sunset, but looks a bit too pinkish for me because we already have a pinkish sky. Okay, I like the color reversal one, so I would leave it as it is. Maybe just drop the amount a little bit. So default is 50. And I would crank it up to the 100 or so. Hit apply. And maybe just drop down the opacity a little bit. And let's play back again. So yeah, After Effects is struggling a bit to render everything out. But you see how big of a difference we were able to get. So let me draw a quick mask so you can compare that side by side. So which one do you like more? Okay, so this one was quite fast. We didn't even get to the second shot that I have in my project, but basically the technique would be the same. The only difference that for this shot, instead of tracking the most farthest tree, you would actually need the 3D camera. So maybe the question that was asked in the chat before, we can have that answered in another tutorial to cover this part of the technique. I think we are running out of time already. So I hope you... Sorry. I hope you have a great time today. So you've learned something new. Really go, just check it out, sites that I have shared to you. So HDRI Heaven, no emotion HDRI, and also Poly Heaven. These are great and free to use. And yeah, there is a question next week. If you mean, will there be an office hours next week? Yes, we have an office hours every week, but the people are changing. So each person of the Boris FX team trying to do an office hours once a month or so. So yeah, you can follow to borisfx.com and find a schedule for the streams. And also please join our Discord servers where all of the announcement will be there. Again, thanks for staying with me. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and see you in the next office hours. Bye bye.